Hello students, I am Sanjay Kumar. I am in front of you with the next lecture of electrostatics. In previous lecture, we studied about capacitors, combination of capacitors and charge stored on capacitor. We also studied the principle of a parallel plate capacitor. In today's lecture, we are going to study energy stored in capacitor, energy stored in combination of capacitor, what are polar and non-polar molecules, and the effect of dielectric slab when it is inserted between the plates of a parallel plate capacitor. So let us move to our first topic, energy stored in a capacitor. Dear students, we know that capacitor is a device which is used to store charge. When we give charge to some capacitor, then the charge already present on the capacitor always repels the incoming charge. For example, suppose we have this plate and there is some charge already present on this plate. And suppose if you are giving some excess charge to this plate, you are delivering some excess charge to this plate, then the charge already present on plate would tend to repel the incoming charge. But against the repulsion, you are delivering this charge to the plate. Means you will have to apply some force. You will have to do some work to deliver this charge on this plate. And this work delivered by you is stored as electrostatic potential energy on this plate. So this is the work done by you, work done by external agency to give charge to some already charged plate, which is converted as energy of that plate, or this is stored as energy in the capacitor. Okay, let us move. Suppose these are two parallel plates of a parallel plate capacitor. Positive charge is there on one plate and negative charge is there on the other plate. Let these plates are connected to some source of potential difference, say a battery. Then the process of charging a capacitor is equivalent to transferring charge from one plate to the other. We have already studied that what happens actually when the plates of a capacitor are connected with a battery. The free electrons from positive plate start moving towards the other plate through the battery because of potential difference. This battery takes electron from this plate and transfers these electrons to the other plate. In this way, one plate becomes positively charged and other plate becomes negatively charged. This is the process of charging of a plate. Actually, this is the transfer of electrons only. The moment charging starts, there is potential difference between the plates. Therefore, to transfer charge between the potential difference, some work is to be done. We know that if there is some potential difference between two things, 2 points, and we transfer charge between those points, then we will have to do some work. And that work is stored as potential energy of that capacitor. Let dq be the charge transferred against the potential difference V. Suppose these plates are at a potential difference of V and dq is the amount of charge transferred between these plates. Then what is the work done? By definition of potential difference, we know that potential difference is equal to work done per unit charge. Work done is equal work done per unit charge. So from this relation you can calculate what amount of work is required to do to transfer dq charge between the potential difference of V. So you simply cross multiply V and dq and you will get the amount of work done from this expression. So dw is equal to V dq, and this work done is stored as potential energy of the capacitor. So if we put the value of V, potential difference, we know the relation Q is equal to CV. We studied in our last lecture what is charge stored on capacitor. This is equal to C multiplied by potential difference, where C is capacitance of the capacitor. Then if we put the value of V from this equation into this equation, then we get du is equal to q by c into dq. So this is small work done to transfer dq charge between the plates. Suppose you want to charge the capacitor from initially uncharged position, then you will have to integrate this relation. Means initially the capacitor is not charged, initially the charge is 0, and finally you want to obtain a charge Q. Then to obtain this total work done or total energy stored, you will have to integrate the result dq. You will have to integrate dw to obtain total work done or total potential energy. So integrating between the limits, initially charge 0, finally charge q, and putting dw here, dw is equal to q by c into dq from this relation. Here c is constant, you can take c outside from the sign of integration, and it remains integration of q with respect to q. So integrating q with respect to q, it gives you q square divided by 2, because there is exponent power of q 1, and if you integrate with respect to q, then power becomes 1 plus 1, means power becomes 2, and it is divided by the new power 2. So this is the integration of q with respect to q square by 2. So this is energy stored on capacitor when it is charged to some charge q from initially uncharged position, and this is potential energy stored on the capacitor. If you put q is equal to cv, if you replace q by cv in this relation, then you will get this equation. If you are putting q is equal to cv here, then you will get c square v square divided by 2c. One c is cancelled with the c in the denominator, and the result is obtained half cv square. One more important expression can be obtained. If you if you want to eliminate c here, and you put c is equal to q by v, if you replace c by q upon v, then you will obtain this relation: potential energy is equal to half qv. So these are some important relations. Initially it was q square by 2c. If you put q is equal to cv, if you replace q is equal to cv, then you will get this expression. And if you put c is equal to q by v, q upon v, then you will get this equation. So these important relations can be obtained. Now next topic is energy density. Students, before talking about this topic, we discuss that what are the factors on which the energy stored on a capacitor depend. Energy stored is given by energy stored is given by U is equal to half CV square. Means it is dependent upon the capacitance of the capacitor and the potential difference between the plates. If the more potential difference is there in between the plates, then more is the potential energy stored on the capacitor, and it depends upon capacitance also. So a capacitor with larger capacity will be able to store more energy with constant potential difference. So it is dependent upon capacitance as well as on potential difference between the plates. So next topic we have energy density. Energy density means it is the energy stored on capacitor per unit volume of the capacitor. Means it is the ratio of energy stored with the volume of the capacitor. Suppose you have parallel plates. These are the parallel plates of area A each. These are the parallel plates, and area of each plate is A, and gap between the plates is small d. Then what is the volume of the capacitor? Volume of capacitor here is V is equal to area multiplied by gap. This is volume of the capacitor, which this volume is occupied with this by this capacitor. So what is the energy density? Energy density is energy stored divided by volume of the capacitor. So it is if we replace C is equal to A epsilon naught by D, and V is potential difference, we replace V potential difference as electric field multiplied by gap. These are important relations. We have already derived these relations. This is capacitance of a parallel plate capacitor when there is no medium in between the plates, and this is the expression for potential difference between the plates of capacitor. Here E is electric field intensity, which is sigma by epsilon naught, and small d is gap between the plates. So if we use these relations, then energy stored on capacitor becomes half epsilon naught AD into E square. Here AD A into D is volume of the capacitor. So if we divide energy stored by this volume, then the energy density becomes half epsilon naught E square. Actually, A into D is volume of the capacitor and U is energy stored. Energy stored divided by volume of capacitor, it becomes energy density. So energy density is equal to half epsilon naught E square. So from this expression, it is clear that energy density, which is denoted by U bar, it is proportional to square of electric field here. It depends upon square of electric field intensity between the plates. And you know that electric field intensity between the plates is given by sigma upon epsilon naught. And sigma is equal to Q upon area A. Therefore, energy density is directly proportional to charge square of charge stored on the capacitor. More important relations can also be obtained from this expression. SI unit of energy density is joule per meter cube. Actually, it is energy divided by volume. Energy is expressed in joule and volume is meter cube. Therefore, it is joule per meter cube. Energy density is generated as energy per unit volume of the field. Energy stored in series combination of capacitor. Now we are going to study energy stored in different combination of capacitors. Students, we studied in our last lecture series grouping of capacitors and parallel grouping of capacitors. We obtained the expression for effective capacitance of the grouping of capacitors. So now in this topic, we are going to study what is the total energy stored in series combination of capacitors. Suppose you have 3 capacitors or n capacitors. You have n capacitors and different capacitors of capacitances C1, C2, C3, C4. They are connected in series to each other. So these n capacitors, these are not identical, have different capacitances, and these are connected in series to each other. Then the effective capacitance becomes 1 by C is equal to 1 upon C1 plus 1 by C2 plus 1 by C3. We know this, we derived this earlier. And we know that in case of series grouping, charge is equally stored on all capacitor. Equal charge is stored on each capacitors. Okay, so energy stored, we know that it is equal to half Q square by C. Q is the total charge stored and C is the effective capacitance. If we put the value of 1 by C here, then total energy stored becomes Q square by 2 can be taken common, and if we put the value of 1 by C here, 1 by C from this expression, if we put the value 1 by C here, then it becomes Q square by 2 into 1 by C1 plus 1 by C2 plus 1 by C3 and so on. And if we multiply this Q square by 2 with each term inside the bracket, then we obtain that it is Q square by 2C1, Q square by 2C2, Q square by 2C3, Q square by 2C4 and so on. And it is U1 plus U2 plus U3. Actually, Q square by 2C1 would be energy stored on first capacitor. Q square by 2C2 would be energy stored on second capacitor. Q square by 2C3 would be energy stored on third capacitor and so on. So therefore, total energy stored on whole combination of the capacitors is equal to sum of energy stored on individual capacitors. So if we have series combination of different capacitors, then total energy stored on whole combination is equal to the sum of energy stored on all the capacitors. So now let us see what happens in case of parallel combination of capacitors. Suppose we have n capacitors connected in parallel in this way. We have n capacitors and all capacitors are connected in parallel and they are connected with a battery of potential difference V. So we know that in case of parallel grouping, the effective capacitance of the combination is given by C is equal to C1 plus C2 plus C3 plus C4 and so on up to Cn. If n capacitors are there, then it is the effective capacitance of the combination. And the effective energy stored means total energy stored on the combination will be given as half Cv square. Dear students, why we are taking this expression only? Earlier in previous derivation, we wrote the total energy stored on combination as half Q square by C. In Previous derivation, total energy stored was expressed in this way in terms of Q. But now, in case of parallel combination, we are expressing total energy stored in this way, half CV square. Why there is difference between two relations? Actually, in series grouping, the charge stored on each capacitor is same. Therefore, we selected this expression in which charge is appearing. But now, in case of parallel combination, all all the capacitors have equal potential difference, because we know that in parallel grouping the potential difference across each capacitor is same. Therefore, we are taking that expression of energy stored in which V is appearing. So we took this expression in which V is there, potential difference is there, because potential difference is equal across all capacitors. So using this expression, total energy stored is equal to half CV square. If we put the value of C here from the above expression, if we put the value of C, then we obtains U is equal to V square by 2 into C1 plus C2 plus C3 plus C4 plus Cn. And if we multiply V square by 2 with each term inside the bracket, we obtain V square C1 by 2, V square C2 by 2, V square C3 by 2. In this way, we obtain this expression U is equal to C1 V square by 2 plus C2 V square by 2 and so on. So this is energy stored on first capacitor, half C1 V square. This is energy stored on second capacitor U2 and so on. We obtain the total energy stored on capacitor. So this is U1 plus U2 plus U3 plus UN. So in this way you can see that whether the combination of capacitors is in series or in parallel, the total energy stored on the combination can be expressed as algebraic sum of individual energy stored on the capacitors. So that was the topic. Now we have a very important topic, very important topic. Generally, numerical appears on this topic in board exams. This is loss of energy on sharing of charges between the capacitors in parallel. Suppose we have two charged capacitors. Suppose we have these two charged capacitors. This one has capacitance V1 and it is charged with a potential difference of V1, so that it has a charge Q1. And we have one more capacitor, this is also charged and it has capacitance C2 charged with potential difference V2 and has a charge Q2. And if we connect these two capacitors in parallel, then because of potential difference between the plates, then the charge distribution takes place, because the potential difference always causes the charge to flow. The charge flows between the plates of two capacitors until both capacitors obtain equal charge. Equal potential. So that equal potential which is obtained by both capacitors after combining will be known as common potential. So let us study. Consider two capacitors of capacitances C1, C2, charges Q1, Q2 and potential V1, V2. And if you connected these in parallel, then total charge after sharing is equal to total charge before sharing. We know that charge is always conserved. Charge can neither be created nor be destroyed. So the total charge on two capacitors that was available, that was stored on capacitors before sharing, will be equal to total charge after sharing. Before sharing, the total charge was C1 V1, means C1 V1, Q is expressed as CV. Therefore, charge on first capacitor it is C1 V1, charge on second it is C2 V2, and after combination the total charge is equal to C1 plus C2, because in case of parallel combination, suppose it is capacitor and with capacitance C1 and this is capacitor with capacitance C2, then the total capacitance in parallel is always C1 plus C2. We know this, that it is C1 plus C2. And if they attain a common potential V, then what is charge on this combination? Then charge will be C1 plus C2 multiplied by V, means CV, and C here is C1 plus C2. This is total charge stored. So this is charge stored after combining, this is charge stored before combination. Total charge is always constant, conserved. Therefore, from this expression, V is equal to C1 V1 plus C2 V2 divided by C1 plus C2. This is common potential. Okay, students, I am asking one question here, very simple question. Suppose you have two capacitors. Suppose you have two capacitors, one of capacitance 100 microfarad and initially charged with 100 volt, This is charged with 100 volt. And we have one more capacitor of capacitance 200 microfarad and initially uncharged. It is not charged. And you connect these two capacitors in parallel, then what will be common potential after combination? What would be common potential after combination? The charge will be shared between C1 and C2, and what will be common potential? You will use this expression and you can find the common potential after combination. You simply solve this numerical and tell me the answers. Okay, let us move to the next topic. So let us find what is total energy before sharing the charge. There were two capacitors and charges were there on both capacitors. What was the total energy before combination? Total energy before combination. Energy on first charge, half it was half C1 V1 square, and energy on second capacitor was half C2 V2 square. So this was energy stored on both capacitors total before sharing, before connecting them. And what is total energy after combining the capacitors? The total energy after combining the capacitors, it is half, using the same expression, half CV square, but here the C is the effective capacitance in parallel grouping, and it is C1 plus C2, and here the potential is V, because after combining the capacitors have obtained a common potential V. So this is energy stored after combination, and this was the energy stored before combination. So what is the loss of energy? You will find that the energy stored after combination is always less than the energy stored before combination. There is some difference between the energies before and after combination. So after combination, energy is always less than the previous energy. So this decrease in energy is actually lost. This is the loss in energy. You can obtain the loss by simply subtracting UB from UA. This will be the loss of energy. So mathematical part, let us see what are the mathematical part. Initially the total energy was this, finally the total energy is this, and the loss of total energy, you subtract these two energies, and after simplification, this is the loss of energy. Now the question arises that where the lost energy has gone. If energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, then why the energy after sharing is less than the energy before sharing? Where has this energy gone? Actually, energy conservation law holds good here. Before combination of the capacitors, the energy was stored on both capacitors. When we when we connect these capacitors in parallel, we join these capacitors, then the charge redistribution takes place. Suppose this is charged with the potential difference V1 and this is charged with potential difference V2. Suppose that V1 is greater than V2. Let us assume that V1 is greater than V2. Means this is charged at greater potential than the second capacitor. Then, being at high potential, the charge from first capacitor will start moving towards the second capacitor, so that here the potential falls and potential of second capacitor increases. This redistribution of charges takes place until both capacitors obtain equal potential, and that is common potential. So during that time when charges were transferred between the plates, some electric current was flowing. Electric current was flowing in the wires joining the plates. So that electric current produces heat energy in the wires. We know that heating effect of current. When current flows in a wire, then heat is produced in it. You know the expression, it is I square into IT. R is the resistance, T is the time, and I is the current flowing through the wire. So when the charges was getting redistributed between the plates, then some electric current was flowing in the wires, and because of that current, some heat was produced in the wire. That produced heat has come because of the loss of potential energy of the capacitors. This heat is lost in the environment, and that lost heat is actually the loss of energy. So lost energy appears in the form of heat. So total energy is not lost, total energy is conserved, but the loss of potential energy stored on capacitors is converted into the heat energy in the wire. Okay. So these terms are already explained. Okay, so this was very important topic, dear students. Now we have a very important topic, polar and non-polar molecules. Dear students, we have two types of molecules, polar molecules and non-polar molecules. Name itself suggests that polar molecules are those molecules in which the centers of positive and negative charges are far apart. Means that molecules which have their own electric dipole moment. Those molecules are known as polar molecules. Let us see some example. Suppose we have HCl molecule. HCl molecule. In HCl molecule, we have two types of charges. One is H ion, H plus, and one is Cl negative ion. And if we see the rough structure, then it looks like this. This is H and this is Cl. So this is negative charge and H is positive charge. So here it is the charge center of positive charge and here it is the center of negative charge. Both centers are far apart. Here it is minus E plus E charge and here it is minus E charge. These are equal and opposite charges separated by some distance. So this molecule is acting as an electric dipole and it has some dipole moment. Dipole moment is denoted by small p and it is equal to charge multiplied by gap. So this has some dipole moment. So those molecules which possess some dipole moment are polar molecules. Examples HCl, CO, H2O, NH3. These molecules are polar molecules. And those molecules which do not possess electric dipole moment are non-polar molecule. Though in non-polar molecules, the centers of positive and negative charges are at same point. They are not at some distance. Therefore, net electric dipole moment of non-polar molecules is always zero. So, definition: a molecule in which the center of positive charge does not coincide with the center of negative charge is called polar molecule. So, let us see the example. This is an example of H2O molecule. In H2O molecule there are two H ion and one O. O has negative charge and H has positive charge. So if this is the negative charge and these are positive charges, then center of positive charge lies here and negative charge is here, and there is some separation between positive and negative charge. Therefore, this acts as an electric dipole. More examples are HCl, H2O, NH3, CO2, alcohol, etc. Now, what happens when polar molecules are put in electric field? Suppose polar molecules are placed in external electric field. Then what happens? Suppose these are the polar molecules. Some polar molecule, say HCl, solution containing HCl molecules are present in a region where there is no electric field. Initially, there is no electric field. Then each molecule possesses dipole moment, but the resultant dipole moment of the whole substance is zero, because suppose this is first HCl molecule and its dipole moment is in this direction, and dipole moment of this molecule is in this direction, of this molecule is in this direction, this molecule in this direction. So you can see that these dipole moments are randomly inclined. Some are in rightward, some are in leftward direction, some are upward, some are in downward directions, and they are randomly inclined in all directions. So the total dipole moment, if you see the sum of dipole moments, you will find that sum of dipole moments is zero. So the resultant dipole moment is zero when electric field is not applied across the substance. Now, what happens when we apply electric field? Suppose now electric field is applied. Then, because of electric field, each dipole experience some torque. We studied this topic, the effect of electric field on electric dipole. When a dipole is present in electric field, it experiences torque, and torque is given by, you have already studied that torque is equal to P cross E, means it is Pe sine theta. So each molecule experiences torque because of external field, and that torque tends to bring it into equilibrium position. Means either at theta is equal to 0, means either the P and E tends to acquire theta is equal to 0, means tend to become in same direction, or theta is equal to 180 degree, means in opposite direction. So that torque tends to bring the molecule in equilibrium position. So after applying electric field, the redistribution or arrangement reordering of the molecules take place, and now the net electric dipole moment of the whole substance is not zero. Most of the molecule get inclined in the direction of electric field, and now electric dipole moment of the whole substance is non-zero. So when electric field is applied, the dipoles reorient themselves in regular fashion, and hence dipole moment is induced. Complete alignment is not possible due to thermal agitation. We know that there is some temperature, and because of temperature every molecule has some kinetic energy, and because of kinetic energy they cannot stay in a particular direction. They always tend to become disordered. Therefore all the molecules do not get oriented in the direction of electric field. So now let us see the case of non-polar molecules. I have already told you that non-polar molecules are those substances in which the center of positive charges coincide with the center of negative charges. So net electric dipole moment of each molecule is zero. That will be it is it those molecules have symmetrical shapes. Example N2, CH4, O2, C6H6. These are examples of non-polar molecules. So this is the case of a non-polar molecule. In this case, the center of positive and negative charge lie at same point. Therefore, there is no separation between positive and negative charge. No separation means there is no dipole moment. And if it is not placed in external field, then there is total dipole moment of the whole substance is zero. Because individually a molecule does not possess dipole moment. So many molecules when combined together will not have non-zero dipole moment. They all have zero dipole moment. But when non-polar molecules are placed in external electric field, then the deformation of molecule take place. Then their centers of positive and negative charges get displaced. The negative charge moves in a direction opposite to electric field, and positive charge is displaced in the direction of electric field. Because of this displacement, now the centers are separated far apart and the molecule possesses dipole moment. Therefore, if non-polar molecule is placed in external electric field, then some electric dipole moment get induced in non-polar molecules. So this is induced dipole moment, and net dipole moment of the whole substance will not be zero. So next topic we have dielectrics. Actually, those insulators whose molecules get polarized, whose molecules possess electric dipole moment when placed in electric field are dielectrics. Generally, a non-conducting medium or insulator is called dielectric. Precisely, the non-conducting material in which induced charges are produced on the faces on application of electric fields. Means those substances which are actually non-conducting, actually they are insulator, but when placed in external electric field, then the redistribution of charges take place and that substance obtains some electric dipole moment. Those molecules or those substances are known as dielectrics. Examples are air, hydrogen gas, glass, mica, paraffin wax, transformer oil, etc. Now we have polarization of dielectrics. We have studied that if we place non-polar molecules in external field, then their shapes get distorted. Initially, the non-polar molecules were spherical in shape when not placed in electric field. So, but when they are placed in external electric field, then then centers of positive and negative charges are displaced. Positive charge is displaced in the direction of external field, and negative charge of each molecule is displaced opposite to the electric field. Therefore, their centers get displaced and each molecule possesses some electric dipole moment. So this happens in the presence of external electric field. So now a net dipole moment is there, and because of net dipole moment there is some electric field also inside the dielectric. So this actually happens if E naught is applied electric field. This applied electric field is E naught, and the net electric field inside the dielectric, sorry, EP is induced dipole moment, induced electric field, means it is electric field because of this induced charge. EP is electric field due to induced charge, and E naught is applied electric field. Now, what is total electric field or net electric field? Net electric field is given by E naught minus EP, because E naught is applied and EP is induced and they are in opposite direction. Therefore, the magnitude of resultant electric field will be equal to E naught subtracted EP. E naught minus EP. This is net electric field. So this is very important statement that electric field gets reduced when a dielectric slab is introduced. If you place a dielectric slab between the plates of capacitor, suppose these are the plates of a capacitor, and you put a dielectric slab, this dielectric slab between the plates, then electric field reduces, because in when this dielectric slab was not there, then electric field was E naught, and if you place this dielectric slab, then a reverse electric field is generated, EP. Then net electric field between the plates becomes E naught minus EP. So dielectric field reduces. So the ratio of original electric field EP and reduced electric field E naught minus EP is known as dielectric constant, or it is also known as relative permittivity of that material. So this ratio E naught divided by net electric field En is called dielectric constant. This constant is a dimensionless constant because electric field is there in numerator and electric field in numerator. These two electric fields cancel in pair, and dielectric constant is a dimensionless number. Next topic we have polarization vector. Dear students, when we place a polar molecule, polar substance or non-polar substance in electric field, then their molecules get polarized and they obtain some non-zero dipole moments. Suppose there are n molecules and resultant dipole moment of n molecules is given by n multiplied by dipole moment of each molecule. Suppose there are n molecules per unit volume and P is dipole moment of electric dipole moment of one molecule, then total dipole moment per unit volume is given by this product n into P. P is dipole moment of one molecule and n is the number of molecules per unit volume. If we multiply these two, then we obtain total dipole moment per unit volume. This term P, it is actually capital P. This term total dipole moment per unit volume is known as polarization vector. This is polarization vector. This depends upon the nature of the substance. If the substance is polar one, then the P vector, polarization vector, has larger value, and if the substance is non-polar, then it has smaller value. But in both the cases, this P vector depends upon the electric field intensity which you have applied externally, because in both polar and non-polar molecules the net dipole moment is always zero if you do not apply electric field. If you are not applying electric field, then resultant electric dipole moment of whole substance is always zero. But when you apply external electric field, then net electric dipole moment in both substances, either it is polar or non-polar, net electric dipole moment is not zero. So electric dipole moment of the substance is because of external electric field only. Therefore, we can say that the net dipole moment per unit volume is directly proportional to electric field. So this always happens. So those substances which obey this equation. Okay, so polarization vector measures the degree of polarization of the dielectric. It is defined as dipole moment per unit volume of polarized dielectric. So we have studied this. I have already explained. So what is SI unit of polarization vector? It is number of molecules per unit volume multiplied by dipole moment. Dipole moment is expressed as dipole moment is expressed as coulomb meter, and volume and it is does not have any dimension, but it is number of molecule per unit volume. So there is volume in denominator. So volume has dimension of meter cube. So the dimension of polarization vector is unit of polarization vector is coulomb per meter square. So it is coulomb per meter square. This is SI unit of polarization vector. Dielectric strength we have already studied. No, sorry. We have dielectric strength. Dielectric strength is the maximum value of electric field intensity that can be applied to dielectric without its electric breakdown. Students, we know that when we place any substance in electric field, then reorientation of molecules takes place. The molecules get distorted because of external electric field. The positive charges of each molecule is displaced in the direction of electric field, and negative charge of each molecule is displaced opposite to the direction of electric field. If the electric field is very strong, if the electric field is increased further, then separation between positive and negative charge further increases, and it happens that the molecule gets broken. So this is known as electric breakdown of that substance. Suppose we apply strong electric field across air. Then what happens? Then each molecule of air, suppose we have O2 oxygen gas molecule or N2 gas molecule, then the negative and positive charges of each molecule get separated, means electrons are separated from the molecules, and what happens that positive ions and free electrons are generated. So if this happens, then it is known as electric breakdown. So that amount of external electric field which is used to create the electric breakdown of a dielectric, that maximum electric field intensity is known as dielectric strength. Its SI unit is volt per meter. Actually, it is electric field, and SI unit of electric field is volt per meter. But practical unit is kilovolt per mm. Kilovolt per mm means how many kilovolts potential difference is applied per millimeter of a dielectric. So there are some dielectrics and their respective dielectric strengths. For vacuum, it is infinity. So infinite amount of electric field can be applied across vacuum without its electrical breakdown, because there is no medium, so no breakdown takes place. In case of air, the dielectric strength is 0.8 to 1 kilovolt per mm. And for different substances, the values are written. You can see from this table. Next topic we have capacitance of a parallel plate capacitor with dielectric slab. Dear students, we will discuss this topic in our next lecture. So, I hope you are getting a lot from my lectures. If you are watching these videos carefully, if you are making notes, and if you are studying from your textbook also, you are studying from NCERT books which are available on websites also, then then I am sure that this is going to be very helpful for you to continue your studies. So stay home, stay safe. Thank you very much.